Mordechai's 10?
Yeah. Also. So,
Yeah.
you gotta come back as 10, there's Mordechai.
Mordechai who?
Handelbaum.
Oh yeah, he's Schwarz.
He's like Westbrook.
He's not even Schwartz yet. He's still red.
He's Johnny Westbrook to shame.
We have to see him in the mixer. Then you can tell. It says that when could you make a bracha on your titties? When you could tell ben chelis crazy. So when you have to see between the tan and the white, that's how you could really see if it's done. I thought your son will light up the room just because he's here.
Yeah, Shalei Sani Ovid.
Like it. Okay, so let's get started. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Yesterday, Levi made a comment which frustrated Rebbe. And Levi said, why does the Mishnah only list off 15 arayos? There's one more we could add to the list. And Rebbe said, I think you're missing your brain. And Dr. Khmir, what was the lashon that he used? Kemedumali she'ein loy moich b'kadkadai. And Rebbe understood right away what Levi was getting at. It's interesting. He knew exactly which one Levi wanted to add. My daitach imoy anusas aviv. Is that what you suggesting should have been added to this mix? Imoy anusas aviv is plucked with Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan. There's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan if, in fact, one is even allowed to marry anusas aviv. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, one may not marry anusas aviv, which means this case would be impossible because she couldn't have been married to any of his sons. And Uvaplukta Lekamari, since it's only according to the Rabbanan who argued with Yehuda that example would work, the Mishnah doesn't want to discuss any halachas that are subject to machlokes. And like we mentioned yesterday, similar to Ezei Mekayman, the reason why we say Ezei Mekayman every day is because it's a parak that has no machlokes in it. And Rabbi clearly felt that the first parak of Yevamos should have no machlokes. There's enough death. Why have machlokes too in the first parak of Yevamos? So therefore it didn't say it. So the Gemara said, there's a case in the second parak that there's a machlokes about. So the Gemara entered the parak, and it's only the first parak that Rabbi is worried about. The second mission in our parak brings the machlokes b'Shamai and Basil. Zok the Gemara b'Shamai b'Mokai and Basil ain't a Mishnah. We don't even consider that a machlokes. I wonder what Beishamai felt about that. So now the Gemara wants to bring in another option that also is listed in the Mishnah, which also seems to be a subject of a machlokes. So before we turn over, I just want to mention that this week's broadcast is sponsored by Kiva Balter, Lil Nishmas, his father and his mother. His father is a Gershom Gershon ben Yisrael. His mother is Tzipora, but we forgot her father's name. Oh, Shlomi has it. And also, it should be for Rafu Shalema, for all Tzipora Rachel Basimcha, and it should also be for Rafu Shalema for all those amongst us who did a Rafua, such as Shimon ben Chassia and Shimon Yehuda ben Rivka, and Yaakov Shmuel ben Chana, and Yisrael Moshe ben Yent Gittel, and there's one more, and Elio Shraga Fivish ben Esther. They should all have a refuah shleim b'karev, and anyone who needs houses moved should have Yeshua b'karev mamish. Frank the Gemara, that was an example that was given in our Mishnah as one of the arayos that you cannot do yibam on. The Peligi Rab Shimon Rabban. There actually is a machlokes between Rab Shimon and Rabban about it. Rab Shimon Rabban, and now we'll go with the approach that Rab Shimon holds that there is no problem with Eishes Achim Shlahai Ba'ilami, and we'll see totally in certain cases. The Peligi Rab Shimon Rabban, the Katani, and it does mention it in our Mishnah. So you see, our Mishnah does discuss cases that are subject of a machlokes. So Gemara, but besides Yomim, loy polig Rab Shimon. There's two variations of Eishes Achim Shlahai Ba'ilami. In one case, Rab Shimon holds it wouldn't be a problem. And in one case, Rab Shimon holds it would be a problem. Rab Shimon holds that if the Eishes Achim Shlahai Ba'ilami was never exposed to this Yevama, meaning he wasn't even around when this woman fell to Yibam, then there's no problem with Eishes Achim Shlahai Ba'ilami. So that's a little vague. So if we learn Rashi will give us precisely what the case is. So Mishani benoided ulu b'soif Yavim loy polig Rab Shimon. So Rashi says as follows: Heichad the Meis Ruvain v'lo ban. So I always kill Shimon, but Rashi kills Reuven. So we'll stick with Rashi. So Reuven and Shimon are brothers, and Reuven dies without children. But Ad Shelo Yibna. So Reuben and Shimon were brothers, but Reuben was married, and Reuben died before Shimon was born. So Reuben died, and he left over an almana. But Ad Shelo Yavma, Shimon, I'm sorry, Reuben and Shimon were alive. Levi wasn't alive. I apologize. So Reuben and Shimon were alive, and Levi was not alive. So before Shimon had a chance to eat them, she was still in a matzav of Zika. Noilad Levi Achayim. That's when Levi was born. So now Levi is exposed to a woman who is zakat leibum to him, yet usher to him because he was never living at the time that his brother was living, and that even Reb Shimon agrees will be a problem of Eishes Shloi B'Lamai. So we can say that our Mishnah is speaking about this case because in this case even Reb Shimon is moida. Now where does Reb Shimon argue? Reb Shimon argues if Levi wasn't born until after Shimon made Yibum already. So there was two brothers, Reuben and Shimon. Reuben died, Shimon made Yibum, and after Shimon made Yibum, only then was Levi born. So there, Levi would never become Zoser in Reuben's wife because he wasn't around during the Zika. So what's the shaila? What happens right? No, in that case, if Shimon dies without children, Shimon holds that Levi can make the Yibum because now she's not following to him from Reuben, she's following to him from Shimon. So that's where he argues. Not when they got married. Right. Yes, it means the only way one brother could do Yibam on his brother's almana is if he was in the world at the same time that his brother was in the world. So once you're not in the world, the second because you're only born after your brother died, then you cannot do Yibam. But there's two ways that could happen. It could happen where after your brother died, but before anyone did Yibam, you were born. So then you had that Zika, yet you still weren't allowed to marry her. In that case, everybody holds this woman remains usher forever. So if she does Yibam with Shimon, and then Shimon dies without children, and she falls to you again, you're still usher on her. Why are you still usher on her? Because you had exposure to her when Reuben died. So you're permanently poisoned from it.
Yeah.
That everybody agrees. And that's what the case of our Mishnah is going to be. Reb Shimon argues if first Shimon did Yibam, and then Levi was born. So at the time Levi was born, there was no Zika at all. It was just Shimon's wife. So if Shimon dies, Levi will be able to make Yibum because we look at it like this is a whole new situation, and he was around together with Shimon.
Maybe even if the person is in this world, then he's got to wait until he's bar mitzvah, correct?
Probably, yeah.
Which means that this woman is going to be hanging around at least for 13 years.
Exactly. But she'll at least know that eventually she'll get this young hot guy. No, what happened was her husband died under warranty. So she says, I don't want to take an old second-hand one. I want to take brand new. That's what I want to last. I want my 10-year warranty. You know what I'm saying? Okay, talk to me more about it.
She might be an older lady.
Yes, yeah.
If she's 45 years old,
that's correct.
She knows that she won't have children no matter what.
It's a problem.
So that's pretty interesting. The whole idea is to have children, and then all of a sudden.
But there's a chiv even if she doesn't. As long as she's not an illness. Okay, so let's see the Gemara better. So Zok the Gemara, B'noilad B'soif Yom like Paul Reb Shimon. So therefore, we could say that the case of Eishes Achim Shloi B'Elamai that our Mishnah is talking about is in the case where he was first born and then Shimon did Yibum. Levi was born before Shimon did Yibum, so that Levi becomes usher. Everybody agrees Levi becomes usher on this woman. Rabbi Yosy said that Rabbi Shimon argued even in that case and held that there's no such thing as an isser of Eishesach. Zok the Gemara, that's not a kasha. We don't hold Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy was Augustlagen, so therefore we do have a way to understand the case of Eishesach Shloi B'Elamai that is a libud chulama that's not subject to a machlokes. Remember, we have another problem, and we're about to learn a brain teaser. But Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rab. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rab, V'chaintani Rab Chia, B'chulam, in all 15 cases of erva that our Mishnah mentions, you can apply the following situation. Now I'm going to read 4 or 5 lines that will not make any sense, and then I'll explain them. B'chulam ani kayr behen ha'asura lazeh. The woman that's usher to Reuven, mutaris lazeh, is going to be mutter to Shimon. V'asura lazeh, and the woman that's usher to Shimon, mutaris lazeh, will be mutter to Reuven, and v'achoisha shehiyah vimta, and her sister, who's also following to you in Yibam, will be chaletzes or mishapemes. You'll be able to make chalitza or Yibam. So what in the world is this talking about? So no one could explain this better than Rashi. So let's quickly see Rashi. Not the whole Rashi, don't worry. So I'm Rabbi Yudam the Perak Dalet Achin Itnan. Dalet Achin Shenasu. Dalet Achin, 4 brothers. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Shnaim Nasu Shtei Achayos. Reuven and Shimon were married to 2 sisters. There's nothing wrong with that. And Shimon and Levi and Yehuda were single. Umesu Hanesuin Es HaAchayos. Reuven and Shimon died. So now Levi and Yehuda have 2 women that are zakuk to them. But the problem with these 2 women that are zakuk to them is they can't marry either of them because it's going to be achayis u'kasser. There's 2 sisters. Now I married 2 sisters, and now there's 2 sisters that are zakuk to them, right? So they can't marry either of them. So harelu choltois v'loy b'shabmois. They have to make chalitza. They can't do yibum. Levisha shteyan zakukos lozeh u'shteyan zakukos lozeh. Both Reuven and Shimon's wives, so both Reuven and Shimon's almonos, who are sisters, are zakuk to Levi and they're zakuk to Yehuda, and neither one could marry either one because v'nosef high kapaga b'chaysu kukasai. If he does yibum with one of these 2 women, he's being pageya in the sister of the other woman who's also zakuk to him. I'm sorry. Okay, and then the other one will be mutter. It's not true because once it becomes usher to him, he doesn't become mutter later. He does not become mutter later. But once the zik is there, it's a chayse kukasa. Now she becomes usher. Now she becomes usher forever, because once there's a zika and she can't do the yibum, she becomes usher forever. So v'nosef high, and if you marry the other sister, once again paga b'chayse kukasa. V'damya, it's similar to la'chois isha b'chayeha. It's similar to marrying to him. This is not really marrying to him; it's only a zika, but we're comparing it. We're answering it just like we would answer if you were married to 2 sisters. And now we're going to build up one extra level of complication. What would happen if we have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi? Okay, Reuven and Shimon were married to sisters, and then Reuven and Shimon died. Now Levi is zakuk liibim to these 2 women. He could not marry either of them, right? Because it's a choshev kavod. What if one of them has another problem that's also taking shemerva? Let's say one of them is his daughter. Let's say one of these 2 women are his daughter. So now he's not zakuk to that girl at all. So therefore, he would be able to marry the other one. Well, what if Yehuda was around and the other one was his daughter? So how asur lazeh mutaris lazeh, right? If each of the 2 remaining brothers, Levi and Yehuda, one wife was also to for some reason, and the other wife was also to for some reason, then each one can marry the one who's mutter to them, and it works perfectly. So that sister is not even zakuk to him at all, but he will be able to marry the other sister, because the other sister is the lava chosahi, because that zika was never chal because it was an erba. You should dach erbi, below is a kukule. The rachmana patrimine, midrashas Allah. The Asheni also b'shtein. The other brother would be usher on both of them if he didn't have an erba. But hoysa shniya asura lasheni is an erba. So then each one could marry the other one. So that's what it means. And the sister of the person that's usher to me is because now it's a regular zikah that I could do even with or chalitza because there's only one sister that's talking to me.
There was only one of them that had this.
Correct, but the other guy couldn't. So this means that the other almana doesn't have evil. Doesn't have evil. So now let me show you where the complication starts. The complication starts is that it's possible that any one of the 15 arayos mentioned in the Mishnah could be the reason why both Levi and Yehuda are also to one of the wives. So Rashi goes through a long cheshbon of giving you all the different 15 arayos, how it works out, and it becomes a very complicated redneck family tree. Let's just learn 2 cases that will be very relevant. One case is relevant because it's the simplest, And the other case is going to be relevant because we're going to need it. It's Eishes Ach Shlohay Ba'ilama. So let's look to where Rashi describes this relationship with Bas. So I'm going to go down in the wide lines, and I'm going to look at where Rashi says Bitoy. I'm not sure if you can see where I'm pointing to, but I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I'm 9 lines down in the wide lines, about a third of the way across Bitoy. You see where it says Bitoy, Rashi? Yeah. So Bitoy loy mishkachas. What's the case where one of these? So Reuben and Shimon are married to 2 sisters, and one of these sisters is Levi's daughter, and one of these sisters is Yehuda's daughter. So it could be a little complicated, but it's the simplest of the bunch. So loy mishkachas ella Bitoy ma'anusasa. It only works out if it's Bitoy ma'anusasa. She'i after lebitoy shel Reuben ubitoy shel Shimon. It's impossible for the daughter of Reuben and the daughter of Shimon, Leois Achois Minaim, it cannot be speaking. I'm sorry, they cannot be sisters through their mother. Share Ashes Reuben, Sheyolda Loibas, Vigirsha. If
Levi or you lose.
so over here it seems to be killing. It seems to be killing here Levi and Yehuda. Yeah. So let's let Rashi fear ois the case because it seems like Rashi is now killing Levi and Yehuda. So let's try this out. Ages Reuben, she yelled Lebas. Let's say Reuben married a woman and had a daughter. Vigirsha, and then Reuben divorced his wife. Loy Nisis Shuv Shimon. Shimon would have never been able to marry this woman. It's impossible. Shagrushas Echapi, it's Eishesach. Elahaki Mishkachas. So now let's talk about it. Reuben Onas Isha. Reuben raped a woman, or like Rabbi Elman says, violated a woman. He raped a woman. The Yol Lebas, and he had a daughter. So now Reuben has a daughter, but this woman is not his wife, was never his wife. And therefore, Shimon is allowed to go and rape her now. Because of Shimon, Va'anas es Anushas Achim. So you have now 2 brothers rape the same woman, and each time she had a child out of it. So one of these children is Reuben's daughter, and one of these children is Shimon's daughter. So now you have 2 girls that are sisters from the mother, right? They're sisters through their mother, not through their father. Okay? So Mutaris Lai, this woman was mutter to the second brother. So you have 2 relationships. Reuben raped a woman and there was a daughter born. Shimon raped a woman and there was a daughter born. So now there's 2 girls that are born that are sisters through their mother. One is the daughter of Reuben and one is the daughter of Shimon. So Hare Bas Reuben Bas Shimon Achoyis Minei. So now Reuben's daughter and Shimon's daughter are sisters through their mother. And who do they marry? V'nisal Levi Yehuda. Who will I marry? I'm going to marry my father who was a rapist. I'm marrying his brother. That's the shidduch for me. The shotgun says, it says, this boy's brother is such a big tzaddik, he's a rapist. That's my shidduch that I'm ready for you to do. Okay? So that's probably how they read Haman and Shidduchim. So I don't know what exactly he was looking for, but this is a shidduch, azans and azalos, nishdu azans in the belt. This girl is the daughter of your brother the rapist. And they married Levi and Yehuda. So what happens? Achayavim, right? Now Levi and Yehuda dies. So what happens? These 2 girls who are sisters now fall to their brothers, to Reuben and Shimon, right? Which are also their fathers. So that's a case of Bitan. So Reuben cannot marry one of these girls because it's his daughter. Shimon cannot marry the other one because it's his daughter. But Reuben can marry Shimon's daughter, and Shimon can marry Reuben's daughter. So that's exactly an example of how, in the case where 2 sisters are married, one of them is Bitai to Reuben, the other one is Bitai to Shimon, and therefore they're each allowed to do Yibam on the other daughter. And Rashi is so long because Rashi explains this same case with all the 15 arise, which becomes very, very complicated. I just want to learn how this could happen by the erva of Eishes Ach Shalahay Bailamai, because that we cannot escape. So it's so complicated that Rashi even gave it its own heading. So about 10 lines from the bottom, we have another Rashi that's Eishes Achim Shalahay Bailam. So let's discuss how could there be a situation where there are 2 sisters, let's call it even the 2 brothers, and one of them has a problem of Eishes Ach Shalahay Bailam to A, and the other one has a problem of Eishes Ach Shalahay Bailam to B. Right? That's what we're going to have. So let's look at it. Well, you can only have it. Ella aliba de Rab Shimon, according to Rab Shimon, because Rab Shimon says that if the new brother was born after the wife already was Nisyabim to Shimon, but if Levi was born after Reuben's Almana already married Shimon, then Levi would not be usher on that woman, right? So we said, according to Reb Shimon, if there was two brothers, Reuben and Shimon, Reuben died and left over an Almana, right? And after he died, before his Almana did Yibam, Levi was born. Levi cannot do Yibam. Levi cannot do Yibam on this woman, right? Shimon could do Yibam on the woman, right? But Levi will never be able to do Yibam on this woman. But what happened if Reuben died, Shimon did Yibam, and only after Shimon did Yibam was Levi born? Then we said, according to Reb Shimon, Levi would be able to do Yibam on her, because Levi never became usher to her, because he wasn't even born yet until after Shimon already married, right? So let's see what Rashi says over here. The Shari Reb Shimon holds that Eshes actually Haybalam is not a problem if he was only born already after Shimon did Yibam. The Simonech and the Simon, to remember the case where you would have two brothers, that one is usher to one and one is usher to the other, would be Meis Noilad V'Yavim. He died, then the child was born. Then Yibam what happened? Meis, he died, Noilad, the child was born, the Yibam, then the Yibam happened. So there are two such cases, because we have to make one apply to one brother, one to the other brother. So now we'll go through the case. Good, Reuben, V'Shimon, V'Levi, V'Yehuda. There were four happy brothers. V'nei Yaakov. V'Nosru Reuben, V'Shimon. Reuben and Shimon married Shtei Achayos. So far, so good. Reuben and Shimon were married to sisters. Umeis Reuben b'lei badim. And Reuben died without any children. After Reuben died, before anyone did Yibam, V'Noilad Yisachar LeYaakov. Now they had a fifth brother was just born. Umata liyevemdai skukal Yibam. When Yisachar was born, this Almana of Reuben was still around. She wasn't remarried, so that creates a zika to this Yisachar, and it permanently makes it usher for Yisachar to ever marry this woman again. So Asurloi, this woman, Reuben's Almana, will be usher to Yisachar. So what happens with this woman? The Levi made Yibam. Levi made Yibam on her, so that's fine. And then Umesh Shimon Achrikin. Then Shimon died. But by the time Shimon died, Yisachar was already alive. So Yisachar is mutter to Shimon's wife. But guess what? The Noilad Zvulun. Yaakov had another child, Zvulun. That Zvulun will be usher to Shimon's wife, because Zvulun has the same problem with Shimon's wife as Yisachar had with Reuben's wife, right? Umatalav Isser. So V'Yibam Yehuda. So who made the Yibam? Yehuda made the Yibam, because he was one of the four original brothers. So now, Levi and Yehuda, Levi is married to Reuben's Almana, and Yehuda is married to Shimon's Almana. And now they both died. Umesu Levi v'Yehuda. Now that Levi and Yehuda died, these two sisters fell to Yisachar and Zevulun. V'naflu achayis halalu lefnei Yisachar u'Zevulun. So what's going to happen? Eshes Levi asur Yisachar. The wife of Levi, who was originally the Almana of Reuven, is going to be asur to Yisachar. V'pnei shaba u'matza be'isur nefilas Reuben. Because when Yisachar came to the world, he became immediately Nesar to Reuben's Almana forever, because he wasn't alive when Reuben was alive. So even though now Levi made Yibam to her, it doesn't help. She's also forever. So even though Levi died now without children, and from Levi itself he could have made Yibam, but she's poisoned from him forever. But Umuteres Zvulun. But Zvulun could marry Reuben's wife, who's now Levi's wife. Reuben's Almana is not Levi's Almana, because he was never around at all. Because when Zvulun was born, she was already married. She was already married to Levi. Reuben's Almana was already married to Levi. And this only works according to Reb Shimon, because Reb Shimon is the only one who holds that if Zvulun was born after already Reuben's Almana was remarried to Shimon, you ignore the whole story with Reuben and you only focus on the relationship with Shimon. And Lagabi Shimon, Zvulun is Eshes Achsvai by Lomar. So therefore, Shari will be Yibam. Will say no Shari. Shari Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon knows that would be mutter. The Eshes Yehuda and the wife of Yehuda would be Asher to Zvulun, because the wife of Yehuda was originally the wife of Shimon, and Zvulun was born while Shimon's wife was still an Almana. But it's muteris liyisachar. But this wife of Shimon would be mutter to Yisachar. Shera Shimon of Yehuda, because he saw Shimon in Yehuda. So we'll stop over here. Kalos is a new case. So that's the case how you have you can have one brother has an issue to one wife and one has to another wife, that's the other sister. But this only works if you hold like Reb Shimon, because not like Reb Shimon, regardless, it's also to everybody. So those are the two cases out of 15 that we'll discuss. So let's see what happens.
One quick question. There are one who hold it for us because she still some semblance of Ruben's wife.
Correct.
Remember we learned a couple of days ago, there are 3 things that the bummer is like a full Isha. Divorce, you can take it back.
Yes.
Right? Does the Rabbanan not hold those?
He does, but the problem of this guy having Isha Shach Shalai he stays forever.
That's because of Yaakov.
So even though a Yevon becomes a regular wife, Lagabi their relationship, but Lagabi brothers who are Nesser, they stay also, according to Rabban. Yeah, that's a good point, because it either is or isn't. I hear. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. So we have in all these 15 cases, you have the option of if one of the two sisters is also to one of the brothers, it'll be mutter the other brother, and it works out with all of the 15 arais, and we illustrated clearly how it works out with 2. If you want to get the other 14, you could go through Rashi, and Rashi will explain it, and you could have like 30 pages of pictures in the Sifta Gemara that makes it even more complicated. Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda mitargim mechamoisha ve'elach. Rabbi Yehuda holds no, it doesn't. It's impossible to have all of these examples in all of these cases. It only starts from chamoisha ve'elach. Abel shita babi the Reisha, the first 6 cases of the Reisha, which are his 3 generations after him and 3 generations after her. Right? Remember when we discussed originally how the Mishna set up these arayas in order? So it started off with his and his progeny, and then it goes to her and her progeny. So those are 6 people. Those would not be possible. Why? Because kivan the bitay ba'ointin mishkachasla, b'nesuin la mishkachasla, as we just illustrated. We just illustrated that it's only possible for one of these sisters to be the daughter of Reuben and the other one of these sisters to be the daughter of Shimon, only if the original relationship was an oinus. Because if it was a marriage, then you could have never married your brother's wife. So Svibalta only could happen by ointin and not by nesuin. The Mishnah does not want to discuss. The Mishnah does not want to discuss a case. The Mishnah is not looking to discuss a case that came out through ointin. The Mishnah wants to speak about more conventional cases. But ointin like Kamari.
Not even the language.
I'm sorry?
Step down from the language.
Oinus?
Yeah.
I guess so. But either one of those arrangements wouldn't do too well socially in our generation.
These cases happen these days.
It wouldn't have to do a shidduch. And you can say, the Shat will say, I don't understand. So you write there, it's a mefusha gemara. I have a shidduch for you. It's such a good shidduch. It's a mefusha gemara in your moment. It's gewaltig. It's the best shidduch in the world. Where do you find a shidduch with the gemara? It's unbelievable. It's It's unbelievable. It's gewaltig. Think about it. The Shat can say, what? You're saying it's not a good shidduch? You're insulted? Are you crazy? Where do you have a shidduch that's mamish in the gemara? The Mishna, the Tana, the Heilige Tana. And you're telling me that's not good? How are you talking? Forget you should give me a bonus on the Shat Chametz. Okay? Not some a bullet, a silver bullet. Zok the Gemara. So I'll call upon them, Zok the Abaye, it doesn't matter. Abaye mitagim, af bitoy manusasa, even bitoy works. Even the ashkuche, mishkachasla, since in fact it could happen. It works out. It has to be in the Einstein. It doesn't make a difference to me. I would be willing to learn that our Mishnah is even talking about such a case. But where do I draw the line? There I draw the line. My timer, even the Rab Shimon who the Mishkachasla, the Rabban and Loy Mishkachasla, the Plukta Loy Kamari. I don't mind saying that our Mishnah is discussing a case of Anusa, but I don't want to say that our Mishnah is speaking about a case of a machlokes. So therefore, I can't apply all 15 of these arayas to this case because Eishes Achim Shalei Balomi does not work according to the Rabban. Rab Safar Metargim, and Rab Safar learns, Af Eishes Achim Shalei Hayu Balomi. It's even possible that this case applies to Eishes Achim Shalei Hayu Balomi, like we discussed. Umishkachas La B'Shita Achim, that there are 6 brothers, like we discussed, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. Rab Shimon, and it follows Rab Shimon like we just explained in Rashi. And the best way to remember this case, how it developed, was Meis Noilad B'Yavim. Meis Reuben died. Noilad Yisachar was born. B'Yavim and Shimon did Yibum. And then Meis Shimon. Then Shimon died. Noilad. Then Zavulun was born. B'Yavim and then Yehuda did Yibum. So the first Yibum was not Shimon. The first Yibum was Levi. and the second Yavam was Yehuda. Ella, the Rebbe, but according to Rebbe, Hani Kal Leslie. So you're going to have to say, if Rebbe holds of this thing that Reb Chia said, well, then he would have to agree that you can have a machlokes, right? Because in order to say that Eishes Achar Shloi by Lamai could also be such a case, you have to say it's going to Reb Shimon, which means you cannot learn that the case is only in the case where Reb Shimon agrees, right? Originally, we wanted to say maybe the Mishnah is speaking where Reb Shimon agrees in the case where Reb Shimon agrees, but in order to be able to say that the two sisters story works out with Eishes Achar Shloi by Lamai, it only works according to Reb Shimon. Zok to Gemara, you'll have to say Rebbe Hani Kali Leslie. You'll have to say that Rebbe holds. No, I don't hold like Reb Chia that all of these 15 arayas will apply to being able to be matter one sister to one brother, one sister to the other brother. He disagrees with Reb Chia's comment. Okay, so therefore he's not meshubah to say that our Mishnah is beplukta kamari. He could maintain that our Mishnah is only speaking about a case where there's no machlokes, and that's why he rejected Levi's addition of imoy to the list. Imoy meaning this Lusa. He rejects Levi's added case, the 16th case. Rab Acha Karchina Kamed Rav Kana Amar Mishmei. I'm sorry, Rab Ada Karchina Kamed Rav Kana Amar Mishmei. He wanted to offer a different shot. Lo'ilim Islay LeRabbi Haniklo. Really, Rabbi holds that our Mishnah could be discussing even a case that's a machlokes, and I'll agree, or Rabbi would agree that it could even be going according to Reb Shimon only, which is a machlokes. So why did he reject the case? So again, what was the case? What was the case that Rabbi rejected? It was Imai, right? Right, so, which means Imai. Because the problem is he wanted Imai also to be one of the arayos that patters you from evil. So what would have been the case? The case would have been, how is it possible that a mother should fall to him evil? You think about how could your mother fall to you? How could his mother fall to him? What would be the case? Where Yaakov was married to a woman, right? And that woman married Reuben. How could that woman have ever married Reuben? It's impossible. What? Oh, but if it was Anusa, right? If Yaakov raped a woman and they had Reuben, so now Reuben is the son of Yaakov's is Yaakov's son and Reuben's son as well. Then Yaakov had a legitimate son by the name of Shimon, right? And Shimon married Reuben's mother, because if you're allowed to marry a Nusa Sovah, right? Not if you don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, you're allowed to marry a Nusa Sovah. So it's theoretically possible for Shimon, the brother of Reuben, to be married to Reuben's mother, right? So the reason why Rebbe didn't want to include that in the Mishnah is v'haki kamerle. Imay anusas ovid v'chada mishkachas lo v'tarti lo yika mishkachas lo. The problem is, if we want to say here that Rebbe does agree to these cases that Reb Chia said apply to all arayos, the problem is it wouldn't be able to apply to anusas ovid, because you couldn't have both systems. Because let's think about it. Yaakov beis achayis on. So let's say Yaakov raped two sisters, right? So kum to Rashi says, Yaakov shtei achayis on. V'yolda lo ha'achas Levi v'achas Yehuda. So Yaakov had two sons. He had a son Levi who was born from one woman who he raped, and he had a son Yehuda who was born from another child, a woman that he raped. And now v'nasa Reuven anusas aviv imoy shel Levi. Reuben married Levi's mother. Shimon also anusas aviv imoy shel Yehuda, and Shimon married Yehuda's mother. Right. So there will be a case of we have two brothers who are married to their brother's mother. So come to Hois, there's two brothers which are Levi and Yehuda. Reuben and Shimon's almanos fell to Levi and Yehuda, and these almanos are their mothers. So if that was the case, you have a good case of a choshesh sheyivimta, because that's exactly what this case is. But the problem is, the problem is, both of these women are going to be usher to both Levi and Yehuda. Dr. Rashi, a choshesh sheyivimta, they fell asleep Levi and Yehuda, but now mishkachas. That'll happen. But asur lazem uteres lazem mishkachas. You know why? Levi sheshteihem asur shal shneihem. Both these women are usher to marry both Levi and Yehuda. Imoy shel Levi asur loy mishum imoy. The mother of Levi is usher to Levi because it's his mother. V'achoisa, and her sister, who's Yehuda's mother, is usher mishum achoisaim. So there's an independent erba that this woman is Levi's mother's sister. V'chein Yehuda. and therefore we're staying p'turos min hachalitzum na'ibum. So we don't have a case where one woman will only be ushered to one of the brothers, and the other woman will only be ushered to the other brother, so they can each marry the other one. Here, Laban and Yudah cannot do Yibam, sign not on their mother, and sign not on their mother's sister. So it doesn't fit in to Reb Chia's statement that all of their rights have to be able to fit in to this case. Now, Vibes Nachriyos on us, and if the person who Yaakov was Ma'anis were two women who were not sisters, well then then sure, you're going to have Levi's going to be usher to his mother, and Yehuda's going to be usher to his mother. But the problem is they're not sisters, because if they're sisters, they're usher to both of them. So therefore, since Rebbe wants to hold of Reb Chia that all of the cases in the Mishnah have to be able to fit in with this cross Isser, and it would not work, with Anusas Aviv, therefore. Therefore, Rebbe said that Anusas Aviv could not be possibly one of the cases of the rise listed in our Mishnah. Okay, let's go back to Rabashi has another svar. He says, really, Rebbe has no problem having a case in our Mishnah that's totally the machlokes. And Rebbe's he's not limiting the cases of the Mishnah to only cases that fit into Reb Chia's scheme.
Why do we have to fit into those?
Because Reb Chia said that all the cases in our Mishnah fit into there. So if you want to learn that all the cases in the Mishnah fit into there, then you have to limit it to that. So there's nothing forcing you other than the fact is that you want to agree with Reb Chia, who made a statement that the only cases included in our Mishnah are cases that will work this way. So there's nothing forcing you. Rebbe could argue in Reb Chia, which in the first part we said he does. But now we want to say he can agree to Reb Chia. Or now we're saying he doesn't have to hold Reb Chia. So any case could go in. And Uvafluk Kamari. So is there any reason why it doesn't mention Imoy, which is a Nusas Aviv? Right? That's what we're trying to figure out. That's right. We want to know why Rebbe rejected Levi's case of Imoy and Nusas Aviv. So one svara was he didn't want to have any case of Machlokes, and that told him Machlokes of Yudah Chachamim. Okay, that's one teretz. It's a possible teretz. The other teretz is it wouldn't conform to Reb Chia's plan. And now we have a third teretz. Why did Rebbe so vigorously reject Levi's suggestion that it should have mentioned Imai? Is the Karmelite that Rebbe told Levi, Hachi Karmelite. My time if you would have only analyzed the Mishnah, it would have been obvious that cannot be one of the cases of the first Mishnah. You know what? The Masnisin of Yehudi. Our Mishnah is going according to Yehuda. The Asher Banusas Aviv. This only works not according to Yehuda. According to Yehuda, Anusas Aviv is no different than your father's wife, which would be Asher to you. So it would be impossible for such a case to happen. How do I know that our Mishnah is going according to Yehuda? The Katani, the next Mishnah says, Sheish Arayas. Chamurish Me'elu, there are 6 Arayas that can't even happen. They cannot be married to your brother, so they can only be married to a stranger, right? Like your father's wife cannot be married to your brother. So that's an erba that would never happen through Ibam, and therefore it's a Resein Mutaris. We said, just because someone's an erba to you, if she marries a strange man and he's married to another wife, she'll be usher to you, but her tzara will not be usher to you, like we said at the beginning of the pair. And what are the list of items, the list of people that fit this category? Imai, one's mother, the Ashes Aviv, and the wife of one's father, the Chayis Aviv, and the sister of one's father. So let's think about it. My Imai, in the second Mishnah of this pair, what does Imai mean? Elaban is Suas Aviv. If it means your mother, meaning who's married to your father, then I don't need a case of Imai. Hainu Ashes Aviv. The Mishnah already lists off as a separate listing Ashes Aviv. So what does Imai mean in the second Mishnah? Elalav Anusas Aviv. It must be Anusas Aviv. The Katani, and the Mishnah says regarding Anusas Aviv, this woman could not be married to one of your brothers. This woman could only be married to a stranger. So therefore, according to, you wanted to say that according to our Mishnah should have also included, according to the Rabbanon, a case of Anusas Aviv. That wouldn't work because our Mishnah is going according to Yehuda, who holds that that's an impossibility. So Zok Gemara, Man Shamus Lei, the Islay Haisvar, who holds that Anusas Aviv is Aser? Rabbi Yehuda, the Aser of Anusas Aviv. Mishum Haki Lai Tanilai. That's why he couldn't list it in our Mishnah, because in our Mishnah it's impossible that ever happened. It's impossible that someone could fall to his mother Leibim, because his mother could never have married his brother, because under any circumstances, even the Nusas Aviv would have been usher for his brother to marry. So that's why Rebbe rejected Levi's addition of that case. Amalei Rabbeinu Ravashi. We're getting more redneck now. Amalei Rabbeinu Ravashi, Rabbi Yehuda Nami Mishkachasa. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's still possible to have a case of someone falling even to his mother. The Aviv and Osif. You're right. Anusas Aviv, you're not allowed to marry. But what if Reuven did decide to marry Anusas Aviv? So Shimon was born between an illicit relationship between Yaakov and Leah, right? Shimon was born. Reuben is not allowed to marry her, right? Because Anusas Aviv is officer. But Reuben did, and he died. So then she would fall to him, to her other son, to her son Shimon. So it could happen. Zok to Gemara, the Loikatan. We're not listing cases in the Brisa, in the Mishna, of things that shouldn't have happened, but happened anyway. So therefore, that's not a kasha, why it's not listed. Of a Zoivite, we're not going to list such cases. Well, here it's saying the actual marriage that we're talking about, the Yibam. You're saying even Anusa shouldn't happen, like we learned on Amud Beis, one of them on everything. But I guess there's different red lines. Zok to Gemara, Amal Ravashi Ravkana, Beloy the Nami Mishkachasa. So this is going to talk to what you said. Even if this last marriage of one of the brothers, even if that you're insisting can only be done beheter, I'll show you another case where none of the brothers did anything wrong, yet there's still a case of someone's mother falling to evil. And what would be the case? This is the ultimate redneck case. Mishkachas lo Yaakov onas kalosa. Imagine Yaakov raped the wife of his son Reuven, and he had a son Shimon. So now he has two sons, Shimon and Reuven, but Shimon is the daughter of Reuven's wife, right? Shimon is the son. Sorry, Shimon is the son. I'm so mixed up. Shimon is the son of Reuven's wife, right? So that's a perfect case. Umeis Reuven b'lebanon, and now Reuven died without children. V'naf lala kamebra, and now Reuven's almana fell to Ibam, to Reuven's brother Shimon, even though Shimon is her own son. So you have a case. Umigo dehi asira, since she will be usher to her son Shimon, even if Reuven had a second wife who has nothing to do with Shimon, asira, so Tzarashanami asira, Reuven's other wife would be usher as well. So this is a perfect case that would fit into our Mishnah, where Yaakov raped his daughter-in-law, had Shimon, and now after Reuven dies, Reuven's almana falls to her son, to Yibam, to Shimon. Amalei, so we answered, we're not speaking about redneck cases in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is speaking about cases where things happen properly. We're not discussing such crazy cases where such crazy things happen. So that's not one of the cases that we would want to mention in the Mishnah. And again, that explains why Rebbe rejected Levi's option. Yeah, but that would have been so easy.
No, here the rape was on his daughter-in-law, was when she was mishpucha.
You're getting used to the whole concept.
All right, we're getting desensitized. We got to go back to because it's already 6:43. The Aval Pikein, so now we're out of the very complicated Gemara. The Aval Pikein, even though Rebbe was moicha and he didn't want Levi to include that case, but Kalevi b'masnisim. Levi did believe that this belonged in the Mishnah. The Tani Levi said, Imoy, one's mother, pa'ambim paiteres tzarasa, sometimes in certain cases she'll pater her tzara, like the cases that we just discussed. Upam einay paiteres tzarasa, sometimes she will not pater her tzara. Ketzat, haisa imay nesuas of it, if the mother that we're talking about was married to the father, where everybody agrees that there's no kedushin placement, v'nasas la'achiv me'aviv, and she married one of his brothers from his father, Umeis, and then he died. Zuhi imoish ain't paiteres tzarasa. That's a mother that doesn't pater tzara. You know why? Because his brother's kedushin wasn't even typhus. Because the chayv increases to marry your father's wife. So since the kedushin wasn't even typhus, there in fact it wouldn't pater tzarasa. But in the case of anusa, but haisa imay anusas of it. But if his mother was an anusa of his father, when this is lechab, and then there was a marriage, when this is lechab of it, Umeis zuhi imay shapaiteres tzarasa. This is a legitimate case. This is a legitimate case of imoy shapateres tzarasa. I'm sorry? That's right. The Alpha P, Shashanu Chachamim, the Mishnah Senu, Chamesh Esrei, even though the Tana of our Mishnah introduces it and says there's 15 women, Yesh lanu lahazav shesh esrei zak Levi. I hold we can add a 16th woman, his mother, and his alusas of him. Kigoyinzu. Amalei Rish Lakish told Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish told Rabbi Yochanan. Levi, according to Levi that we just discussed, the Amar, the Inami Katani, it does mention cases where there are Isurim involved that led to a mother falling to Yibam to her son. Well, once you're including cases that involve the Isurim, well, you open yourself up to new cases. Listening, hachoilis liyavimtoi the chazav kitchen, umeis b'leibanim, the migud iyasura terashanam esir. This is a very simple case. So let's have a look. The chazav kitchen. So what happened was is that someone made chalitza. Once someone makes chalitza, she's not connected to him anymore, right? But it also discharges the isser of Eshes Ach, according to Rabbi Yochanan. So let's see the Rashi over here, the fourth one. The Kiddushin Toifsin Loiba. He could make Kiddushin on a woman who he made chalitza to. The Eina Olav Ella Balav. The Isser Eshes Ach, according to Rabbi Yochanan, becomes suspended once someone makes chalitza, and the only issue now is Asher Lo Yibana Es Beis Achiv. It says by the chalitza, she tells him Kacha Yasalish Asher Lo Yibana Es Beis Achiv, and we learn Kivin Shleibana Shulb Lo Yibana. So there's merely a lab. After one does chalitza on the woman, she's no longer usher with an isser karish to him, according to Rabbi Yochanan. She's only usher to him with an isser lab. So what happens if he went back and married her? Meaning he married a chayv elaven, and again we're going according to Levi, who includes cases where there are isurim involved. So listen to the chazav v'kitcha, and then he married again. There was a lab. Umeis b'leibanim, and he died without children. The migi the asura, since she will be usher to the other brothers. So Rasanami asira, her tzaris are also usher. The other brothers are usher. Zok Rashi, the kaim alau b'karis to Rish Lakish. According to Rish Lakish, just because the guy who made Yibam, the guy who made Chalitza, his Isser Karish was suspended, and he only has an Isser Lab, but all the other brothers still remain with the same Isser Karish as they had up until now. The Amr come up sorry? That's right. So therefore, since none of the brothers could marry this wife, so too they can't do Yibam on the other wives. So according to Levi, Hakman doesn't list this case. Amalei, he answered very posh. Rabbi Yochanan answered very posh. Because how does Tzara happen? If one of the other brothers who was mutter to this Erba did a Yibum, right? Here, all the brothers are equally usher to this woman, because the problem with this woman is it's Shezach, right? So they're all usher, so it's impossible to have a case of Tzara. That's why he doesn't mention it. Frank the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yochanan, there's even a bigger reason why I didn't mention it. The Malay Chayve Lavani, the Chayve Lavan B'nei Chalitza V'Ibn. Rabbi Yochanan argues on Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish holds that all the brothers still remain with an Isser Karish, but Rabbi Yochanan holds no. Once he does Chalitza on a woman, all the brothers are just like him, and the only issue they have to marry this woman is also only allowed. So why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say the reason why he doesn't mention this is because they would have to make Chalitza, because it's only a chayve isser, it's not a chayve kars. The dvar of Karmelei, Rabbi Yochanan was saying, even according to Rish Lakish, who holds as an isser kares, it didn't mention this because you don't have tzaras tzarasa. But the didi chayve lavanei, the chayve lavan b'nei chalitza v'ibim nenu. So it wouldn't have listed up. It wouldn't have been able to list it in our Mishnah that's part from evil. If a woman falls to someone's evil, so a woman, Reuben dies, and his wife falls to Shimon's evil. But this wife is also a Shimon with an Isser Lab, not an Isser Karetz.
He was chaylik, sir, that he was allowed to do. Then he was not.
Yeah, he was Machzer. Now all of Reuben's brothers may not marry this woman. But then Reuben did Yibam on the woman, okay? And then Reuben did Chalitza. I'm sorry, Reuben did Chalitza on the woman, and then Reuben married her, okay? So if Reuben did Chalitza and then Reuben married her, Reuben violated a lav and married her, right? But Reuben's brothers also have a lav to marry her. So after Reuben dies without children, his brothers cannot marry this woman because of an Isser lav. But if Reuben dies without children and they fall to him to Yibam, since there's no Isser Karish prohibiting them from marrying her, there's only an Isser lav prohibiting them from marrying her, they're mechuyev to do Chalitza. But if there was an Isser Karish preventing him from marrying her, then they don't have to do Yibam or Chalitza. So our Mishnah is saying, our Mishnah is only discussing cases where you couldn't do the Yibam because it's occurrence. I'm sorry? No, we're talking, Yibam and Chalitza could travel together, right? If there's a Zika, you have to discharge it with either Yibam or Chalitza. Because there's still a Zika, right? We told him to do Chalitza. But our Mishnah, I'm sorry? Yeah, because there's a Zika that has to be discharged. That's all it means. There's a Zika that has to be discharged. But our Mishnah is speaking about a case where there is no Zika that has to be discharged, right? In our Mishnah, all the cases are Chayev creases where the Mishnah says on them, Peturis when Chalitza, right? These cases, if they're only Chayev Elav, they wouldn't be put from even, they wouldn't be put from Chalitza, so they couldn't be examples of things listed in our Mishnah. So Zok to Gemara.
Why are they only Chayvei Lavin? Why are they only Chayvei Lavin? Because it was Chalutzas Achli.
Exactly, and the next Gemara that we're going to learn now is precisely this machlokes. We have a machlokes near Bechner and Shlokas. If a woman falls to Yibam and one of the brothers makes chalitza, so Reuben made chalitza, right? Now that Reuben made chalitza, everybody agrees that to Reuben she's only usher with a lav. So if Reuben made chalitza and then Reuben married her, that's not a chi of course, it's only a lav. The question is, what about the rest of the brothers? According to Rish Lakish, the rest of the brothers are status quo. This woman was Eishazach until now. She continues to be Eishazach. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, says no, they are just like him. In other words, he represents them. So the same way his status changed, there's only Isser Lav, that also applies to all the brothers as well, that there's only an Isser Lav. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yochanan, they couldn't have mentioned this case because it would be Chayiv in Chalitza. And our Mishnah is only speaking about a case where we're not Chayiv in Chalitza. But even according to Rish Lakish, that there wouldn't be a Chayiv Chalitza because it's still an Isser Karis, it didn't list it in our Mishnah because it's impossible to have the case of Tzaras Tzarasa. So L'dvar of Carmel, the Chayiv Lavinain, the Chayiv Lavin, that's why it wasn't mentioned in the Mishnah. According to Rish Lakish, that the Chayiv Krisis they knew. The reason why our Mishnah didn't list it is Lefi She'enon B'Tzaras Tzara, because you could not have possibly had a case of Tzaras Tzara in these cases, because neither of the brothers could have possibly done Yibam, so there wouldn't have been a case of Tzaras Tzara. And the next Gemara, which we're not learning now, we'll learn tomorrow, is Itmar Chalutz Liyavimdoi because of the Kitcha. That's the Machlokes. Amar Rish Lakish, who ain't Chayav ala Chalutz Karis, va'achin Chayavin ala Chalutz Karis. And Rabbi Yochanan says Beinu, Bein Achin are not Chayiv Karis, only allowed. And the Gemara is going to get into the svar of that machlokes. So for now, we'll stop here. Afraid of Chapurim, everybody. We should be Zoichet to call up Poshet Yad Noiseloi and Poshet that Yad. One from the Ravanish Lord. I heard from Rav Biederman that on Purim we have a right to demand of the Ravanish Lord, because he asks. I mean, most of them heard already. He asks. It says that Vashti Tozeresh told Haman, Lech emor lamelech. Go tell the king, Mordechai. You tell the king, you order the king around. It doesn't mean ordering the king, but he had that koich, he was able to order the king. So we got through the Vanamahabachu, we got that power to be able to order the king. So we should be zoicha to make good orders, and we should be zoicha to all the brachas available to us on Purim.